Hello and welcome to my latest career video. Now this career video features soon to be Hall of Famer, who has now been stated as joining the Hall, is former top level middleweight contender Jimmy Clabby, who as you can see had a very large career. So let us begin by going through his main opponent breakdown. Now Jimmy Clabby fought Mike Twin Sullivan, the former welterweight champion, on 2 occasions, scoring 1 win and 1 draw. He also defeated former welterweight champion Dixie Kid, aka Aaron Brown, in a singular fight, before then fighting and losing to Bob Mohar. Next up is former Hadi Greb opponent George Chip. Clabby fought him on 3 occasions, scoring 2 wins, 1 loss and no draw. He also fought and won a singular fight to Cheesy Al McCoy. Next up is the St. Paul Phantom Mike Gibbons. Now Jimmy Clabby fought Mike Gibbons on 4 occasions, scoring 2 wins with 1 loss and 1 draw, and he twice fought the great Jerome Jeffords, going 1 loss and 1 draw from 2 fights. Next up, another of the great middleweights of his time, although I don't hold him in quite as high regard as some others, because he also avoided chance to fight Hadi Greb. That was Les Darcy. Now Les Darcy defeated Clabby both times they fought. Next up is tough contender Jimmy Gardner. Clabby fought him in a trilogy, splitting that trilogy 1 win, 1 loss and 1 draw, and then he also fought a trilogy to top middleweight contender Eddie McGaughty, scoring 2 wins and 1 draw, so going undefeated in the trilogy. Next up, is former contender, rated contender Moritz Schleifer. Jimmy Clabby lost to him. He also lost to capable and tough contender Matty Baldwin, before then fighting former middleweight contender Paddy Levin on 2 occasions, scoring 1 win and 1 draw from 2 fights. Next up is young Lowry, whom Jimmy Clabby also defeated, and then he fought to a draw against the final name on here. That was one young Tommy Coleman. So, a very good first slide for Jimmy Clabby. Lots of top names on there, and he's beaten a number of them. So when we go on to slide 2, we see he fought contender Dave Smith 7 times, scoring 3 wins with 2 losses and 2 draws. Jimmy Clabby also defeated Harry Duncan and Willie K.O. Brennan, in singular fights, before then also fighting a draw to the experienced young Ahern. Next up, Tommy Uren, a fighter that Clabby never did that well against, in 6 fights. Clabby scored 1 win with 4 losses and 1 draw. However, he had 5 fight series against Fritz Holland, scoring 4 wins with no losses and 1 draw. And Jimmy Clabby also suffered a defeat to Billy Shade. So the final 2 names on here, the first is a draw to contender Joe Egan, and the second is a loss in a singular fight to Tommy Comiskey. So there are 52 fights highlighted there. Jimmy Clabby has won 22 of those with 17 losses and 13 draws. So let us now go on to the stats for Jimmy Clabby. In KOs and rounds boxed, he scored 46 knockouts. He scored 22 KOs in 3 rounds or less, and Clabby also scored 7 first round wins. Now he scored 0 KOs against champions, 0 KOs against Hall of Famers and pound for pounders, and as a pre-rating era fighter, he scored 0 KOs against rated opponents. And in terms of rounds boxed, very experienced fighter, fought a lot of long fights as well. He fought a total of 1,588 career rounds. He fought 0 title fight rounds, staggeringly, but he did fight 86 rounds against champions. He fought 125 rounds against Hall of Famers and 266 rounds against pound for pound fighters. Now against rated opponents in vastly reduced numbers, Jimmy Clabby fought 32 rounds against top 10, 0 rounds against top 3 and 0 rounds against ring champions. But of course, McGaughty and Chip and Gibbons and Gardner, Sullivan, all these guys would have been rated. Clabby would have had quite a tally, but sadly we don't have that correct information. So going on to his slide against champions, Jimmy Clabby had 8 fights against champions with a winning record, 5 wins, 2 losses and 1 draw. Clabby defeated 4 individual champions. They were Mike Twin Sullivan, Dixie Kid, George Chip and Al McCoy. He scored knockouts over none of those champions individually. And going on to the Hall of Fame slide, Clabby had 9 fights against Hall of Famers with a record of 3 wins, 4 losses and 2 draws. He defeated 2 individual Hall of Fame fighters. They were the excellent Mike Gibbons, who will of course be coming on video at some point, and Dixie Kid, and as shown by knockout stats, Clabby scored no knockouts over any Hall of Famers individually. So going on to the pound for pound slide, his biggest slide, okay, Clabby had 21 fights against pound for pound fighters with a record of 9 wins, 7 losses and 5 draws, and Clabby defeated 6 individual pound for pound fighters. They were Jimmy Gardner, Mike Gibbons, Mike Twin Sullivan, Dixie Kid, Eddie McGaughty and George Chip. Clabby, of course, scored no knockouts over any of those pound for pounders individually. And when we go on to the rated opponents for Clabby, obviously vastly reduced numbers, so he only ends up with 3 fights against top 10 fighters. Many of the wins he scored against Sullivan and McGaughty and Chip were pre-rating era, so he doesn't get them to his credit. So he only has the 3 fights with no wins, 2 losses, 1 draw. He had 0 fights against top 3 rated fighters and 0 fights against ring champions. Thus he defeated no rated fighters individually, nor scored any knockouts over individual rated opponents. And when we go on to the title slide, okay, it's a familiar story to people who watch my channel, because people make out it were only the fighters behind the colour line who did not get title shots. That is not true. The fighters behind the colour line, though, they endured a level of indignation that the white fighters did not suffer. So there were fighters on both sides of the spectrum not getting title shots. The only difference is one of the sides was treated like garbage, the other just didn't get the title shots, but other than that, they were not mistreated in any way. But still, lots of fighters didn't get title shots. So Clabby has no title fights. He has no win, no loss, no draw. He has 0 defences and 0 title fight KOs. Thus scored 0 wins against rated opponents in title fights, and scored 0 wins against champions, Hall of Famers and pound for pounders. So going on to last slide, Jimmy Clabby was never awarded a belt, so with no title fight wins, he captured no world titles, no lineal titles and no undisputed titles. He did fight, of course, for a regional title, but that was not one of the established world titles, although, you know, the Australian middleweight title at one point in the time, not by people looking back now, but in the time, the Australian middleweight title at one point was seen as more legitimate, okay, than the world title, because Ketchel had passed, there was no lineal champion, and the great fighters who fought for the Australian middleweight title, you know, like Jeff Smith, Darcy, etc., you know, gave that title a degree of legitimacy, but it was still not one of the established world titles. So there is my latest video on the excellent middleweight contender Jimmy Clabby, a very tough fighter, a very capable fighter. Should he be in the hall? Well, that's not for me to decide. You know, I don't vote on it, so therefore I can't decide. I'd have been tempted to put him in, but I'd have also had some doubts due to his lack of title success, which, you know, is one thing. And some elements of his resume, you know, but it's not for me to decide. But there is Jimmy Clabby. He'll join my middleweight playlist. I'm the boxing librarian. Coming tonight, just before I go, coming tonight, I'm going to upload my next top 10 fighters by country. That'll come between 7:30 and 8:30 tonight. So that will come my latest top 10 by country, and I'll catch you on future videos. I'm out for now.